Welcome everyone. In today's episode of Beyond LS, I want to share with you my favorite list of one-character aliases for the terminal. These are basically quick shortcuts to commands and tools that I use constantly and on a daily basis. So let's go and meet these friends of mine. I have my terminal here and I have a markdown file called agenda.md. I'm going to open it with a VI terminal editor. The first shortcut I want to share with you is C for clear. So this is basically a quick shortcut for the clear command. Let me quit. Usually whenever you want to clear the terminal, when you have some output, you either type clear or much faster is to run to type Control L. So Control L or clear for clearing the terminal. Also, if you have some command in the prompt and you want to clear the current prompt, you can type Control U. These are really handy. But I often times type clear or in my case I want to type C. For this I'm going to open up the zshellrc file, which holds the aliases, the shortcuts and the variables, the custom variables that we can set for the terminal. I'm using the zshell terminal. So the first alias is C for clear. I'm going to write the file, quit, and then in order to load the zshellrc file to reload this in this session, I have to type source and then zrc. Now this is just for the current session, but whenever I open up a new terminal, the zrc will automatically load and the aliases will be there. I can type Control L and then with C to show me that the C command, the C character, is actually alias to clear. So now I don't have to type clear, I can type C, and that's really cool. The next command is X for exit. So let me save. When you want to close the terminal, you type exit, which is something that I type a lot because I open up a lot of terminals. I do something, I do my job, and then I type exit. I don't want to type 4 characters. For me, X is much nicer. So let me go back to and the Z set rc and write and quit this file and then source it, and now X is alias to exit. So I no longer have to type exit, I just type X. I'm not going to type X because this will close the current session. I don't want this. Let me open up the agenda again. X is down. Now L is a shortcut for ls. Let's go to the next one character shortcut. Usually whenever I want to see the listing of the current folder, I type ls, which is kind of like a short view of just the files, but I usually want to type ls-l, which show me the full listing format with permissions and users and creation date and modification date and stuff. And I also want to type lsla, which will also show me the dot files, the system and files and the hidden files. Now I don't want to type this ls-la. I prefer one character shortcut. So let me go back to my zshellrc and I'm going to say l equals lsla. Write and quit, Control L. Then let me source that. Let me check whether the alias is there. L is alias to lsla, so now I no longer have to type all these characters, just L, and I get the listing. Another thing that I found useful is to list not just all of the files, but also list the specific type of file. So usually I type lsla and then the wildcard character with HTML to see whether there's any HTML files in the folder, or maybe some markdown files or some mp3 files. And I also like to have a shortcut, a very short way to run this command. So once again, I will go to the Z shell RC, but this time I'm going to comment this alias and I'm going to use a function which is much more powerful than a simple alias. So I'm going to say L, and now I need a conditional. So basically when I type L, I want this to be ls LA, and when I type L, let's say HTML, I want this to be this command. So I need some if-else condition here to make this distinction. So I have this, which basically says if there is a first argument passed to this command, then run some command. So in this case, I'm going to run lsla, and then the argument that is passed to this command. Else, I'm just going to type lsla. So if there is no argument, just listing. So I'm ending my if-else statement, write and quit. Now, in this current session of the terminal, I still have the alias to the previous alias to L. So I need to remove that. I'm going to run an alias L to remove that previous alias. So now it's gone. Now I'm going to source ZZRC to load the file again with the new function. And if I type with L, you can see that L now is aliased to, or rather called the function L. Let's check it. So L, okay, I think I made a mistake. Okay, I have to reverse the conditional. You can see here that whenever I type L HTML, it just lists the file. So I made a mistake. Let me go back to the VI. And this means that this conditional means if there isn't first argument passed. So this is the case where I just run lsla, and this is the case where I type this. Now let me source the file again, and I will type L. It's correct, just listing. Then if I type HTML, it will list the HTML files. LMD, it will list all the empty files, and MP3, it will list nothing because there are no MP3 files in this folder. So I find this much shorter than this whole ls-la wildcard and so forth. Let me go to the next command. The next command is aids for history. Basically, this is really useful. We type history, and you see all the commands that you have run during this session, or maybe during a longer session. And I often type history to see this, but aids, it's much shorter, and this is something that I use a lot. Once again, let me go to the and alias history to the letter aids. Write and quit, resource the file, and now aids is alias to history, and that's really cool. Also, if you want to like remove or delete the history, you can type history -p, or in my case aids -p, and then you will see that the history has been cleared. Let's go to the next command. Now the next commands are not quite like they're not really one character shortcuts, but they're really nice shortcuts that I use a lot to go to either the parent directory, the parent directory of the parent, or to go back 3 directories. So basically, instead of typing cd ... to go to the parent, or cd ... // to go to the parent of the parent, you can type just 2, 3, or 4 dots, which is actually really handy. So instead of going like this or going like this or even like this, I will create 3 aliases for this one. Let's go back to I removed the history, so I have and alias dot equals cd, and then this will go to the then no, sorry, this will be 2 dots, 3 dots, and 4 dots, not to confuse with the current directory, which is the single dot. So I hope, let me put some comments here. Okay, 2 dots, 3 dots, 4 dots. Let's see. I will clear or C and then resource the, I have to type this. Okay, so 2 dots will get me to the parent directory. Okay, then 3 dots will get me to the parent of that parent directory. And then let me go back to, now 4 dots will get me back to the parent of the parent of the parent directory, which is 3 parent folders, which is really handy. So these are the 2, 3, and 4 dots. Let me go back to my agenda. So we have this one, we have this one, we have this one. Now I'm going to show you some one-character shortcuts for commands, like some commands that I have installed. You can find these commands on some Linux or Unix systems, but some of them you might have to install. So the first one is the tree. Tree is basically a command that will show you the directory in this tree-like format. So if I go here, you will see it's really nice view of like the contents of the directory. And what you can do is you can type tree level 1 to just show you a tree view of the directory for 1 level, or you can type 2 and that will go 2 levels. Basically, I like to run this command most of the times to see this nice view. Let me go back to the folder, and let me vi and alias t for me is tree L1. And now let me source this, and t is now alias to tree level 1. So now t will show me this tree-like view, which is it's really nice. Okay, let me go back to that folder, and next on the agenda is F for find. So basically this is a built-in command. Find is a built-in command. So usually what I do is whenever I want to search for something, I say find, and then in some folder, let's say in this current folder, and then I usually say iname for case insensitive name, and I use some wildcard like $sign, asterisk, and then something like this, or maybe index or index. Basically, the wildcard characters will help me find any file that contains the characters in the followed by or prefixed with any character. That's what the wildcards are there. And of course, I don't want to type this command all the time. And that's why I have like this shortcut, and I need to use this this syntax. So let me first of all vi zlrc, and I'm going to create a function for this one. So f, and then I could create an alias, but I want to use, so find, and then iname current directory, and then iname, and then I have like $sign, and then these for the arguments, and this will hopefully give me what I need. Let me clear, or Control L, Control U to clear the prompt. Let me source the ZRC again with F. Okay, so F will find me the file in the current folder that contains the characters IN. So if you contrast this with this, I believe you'll find it much nicer and shorter. Let's check to see some other, let me agenda, and you can see that it works. So this is really handy, just F and some characters instead of this whole big thing. Let's see what's next on the agenda. The next two are based on some commands that you have to install. I will leave the music for the end of this video. And I'm going to show you the S, which is a shortcut for running a local server, a local web server. Now, this is really useful to me because I'm a web developer and I oftentimes need to run some, write some index HTML, some HTML files, and then test them in the browser quickly. And this is where this command comes into play. Let me. Now, for this one, you need to have Node.js installed. And when you have Node.js installed, you also have the npx command. So you will see that I have Node installed, and with Node we have npx command line tool. Now let me show you what npx serve does. First of all, I will create a index.html file. I already have an index.html file with some fancy styling and just a heading which says hello, say hello to my little server. So there's already an HTML file here, and when I run npx serve, it downloads and runs this module called serve, which is basically a tiny web server. Now this will open up this localhost address, and I will copy this address and I will open it in my browser. So let me go here in the browser and copy this, and now I have a web server running at localhost 3000, and here's my index.html. Now this is really handy to quickly test some web applications or websites or HTML files. So let's create an alias for that. I'm going to stop the server, and I'm going to open up the Z cell. Let me go here, and alias s npx serve dot write and quit. Let me source that. Now s is one character command, which is alias to npx serve. Let me change the HTML. Simple HTML, and now I just type S, and it's serving the local folder, which means not just the index.html, but all other files will be hosted. So let me do that. Let me add another S, and now let's switch to the browser. Let's refresh. You can see the file is changed, and if I type now /contact HTML, it will also show and serve the contact HTML page. So this is really nice. Let me go back to my terminal and then close this server. So as I mentioned, you have to install, you have to have Node.js installed. Let me go here, and then you have to go to Node.js, Google for Node.js, and then download and install Node.js if you don't already have this. Okay, let's move back to our agenda to see what we have. Now, let's see. We have the server, and these two commands are once again some aliases, some shortcuts for built-in commands. So mv is a command that moves or renames files, and cp, short for copy, is a command that copies file. Now these are not one character shortcuts, but I think you'll find it also useful as well. So here's the deal. If I have this file agenda.md and I want to copy this, I will say agenda, and then I want to copy it to a file called agenda2. This will copy this file over to the agenda to MD. Now, if I change something on the agenda to MD, let's say that I delete everything. Okay, I delete like all these lines. Now, agenda and agenda 2 are different. Okay, agenda 2 is missing these lines. Now, if I run the cp command again, by default, it will replace the file agenda2. You will see it doesn't ask for permissions, or it doesn't notify me that this file is already there and will be overridden. So if I now see the contents of agenda2, you will see that it contains the contents of agenda md. So basically, this command has just overwritten my my previous file contents. So copy and mv by default, at least as to my knowledge on my Mac, it overwrites the contents of the files that you are trying to copy or move or rename, and this is not something that I want. I want to be notified that if I'm trying to overwrite some file that already exists, I should be given some kind of notification. So this is where these shortcuts come into play. Instead of running the built-in mv command whenever I type mv, I want instead to create a shortcut that will run mv with a -i. -i is basically interactive mode, which means that it will ask me whether I want to overwrite a file. Let me run this without the shortcut. So if I type cp agenda and agenda2 and I type I, this time, if there's already a file called agenda2, it will ask me whether I want to overwrite or no the file, which is much nicer than just overwriting something without my knowledge. So let's go to the ZZRC and create this really handy and save shortcuts. So I'm going to use the same name, and I'm going to say that whenever I type mv, look at the shortcut at the alias, and then run the default mv command with -i, so in interactive mode. I will do this also with cp. Now every time I type these commands without the -i, they will automatically redirect to the mv command or the cp command in interactive mode, which is much safer. Let me write and quit. Let me source the ZSRC. Now cp is alias to cp-i, and mv is alias to mvi. So now if I type cp or mv and then adzenta and then adzenta2, it will ask me whether I want to overwrite or not the file. So now I have much safer version of cp and md. I think this is extremely helpful. Oops, let me remove the adzenta2. Still, and the last one is a shortcut to a really cool program that I use a lot called mpg123, which is basically a command line tool to play mp3 files and some other media files. And I tend to use this command to listen to music while I'm working. So you run mpg123 and then the name of a file, an mp3, and it will start playing a song. And also you can type -- control, which, as you will see, will allow you to not only have this program play the mp3 file through the terminal, but it will also allow you to control by typing some commands. So with the plus and minus sign, you can lower the volume, or you can boost the volume. You can go to the next song. So basically it has some shortcuts while it's running and it's playing either one or many files. You can control play, pause, next song, and so forth. And this is something that I do on a daily basis. I listen to music while I code. So let me create an alias for that. So m means mpz123, and then after that I will of course type some kind of like an mp3 file. Let's write and quit. Let me source this file, and now m is alias to mpg123. Let me show you just this utility. The page is a free and open source software. It's available on Mac, Linux, all sorts of like operating systems, and Windows. And you can find here the instructions for downloading, installing, and so forth. So this is mpg123. Let's go back to the terminal. And now let me show you how cool. So you just type the name of the song and then you press Q to quit, or let me type this again. I will you will see that I can press the minus and plus signs to lower the volume. You can see now the volume is, you can go far forward or backwards. Anyway, so that's the agenda for today. We covered quite a lot. Let me check this. So C for clear, X for exit, L for a nice shortcut to ls with some handy like utility for an argument, 8 for history, 2, 3, and 4 dots for quickly going back to a parent directory, T for a quick tree like view of the current folder, F for a nice quick shortcut to find, MV and CP for the much safer interactive version of move and copy commands, and M for playing some music, and S for serving some web content. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know if you have other shortcuts that you use on a daily basis in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye, everyone.